Hi, I'm Meg. Welcome to Change Becomes You, the space where we explore the true power behind lasting change, your unconscious mind, the supercomputer within you, the part of you that creates healing, abundance, safety, clarity, and deeply meaningful relationships, often before your conscious mind even catches up. When I learned how to work with my unconscious mind instead of against it, everything changed. I moved from contract work as an organizer into building a multi-six-figure business from the ground up, guided not by force or hustle, but by alignment, intuition, and inner authority. Here's what I want you to know. You already have everything you need inside you. Nothing is missing. You don't need to become someone else. You need to understand how you're designed to operate. This podcast is your invitation to remember that. Let's begin. Hi, and welcome to this month's Change Becomes You, the podcast. I want to have a deeper conversation with you this month. This is about the turning point where most women will stop. They will turn back. They will shrink. And I'm going to explain why you shouldn't. This is the moment of fear. Fear is kind of rampant on the planet right now. There is a lot of uncertainty. And there's this moment that we will all meet at some point where, for example, a woman is standing on the edge of the life she says she wants. And it doesn't feel like clarity. It doesn't feel like confidence. It doesn't feel like you think it's supposed to feel. It doesn't feel like there's certainty. It feels like fear. It feels like your chest is tightening. It feels like your breath is shortening. It feels like your mind suddenly questions everything you thought that you were ready for and starts to tell you reasons why you're not. And most women interpret that moment as a sign to stop. Like, maybe that's an indicator. Maybe that's what I need to pay attention to. Maybe that's a warning sign. And then they stop. And then they turn around. And then they say something to themselves like, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I should wait until it feels better. Meaning I feel better. But what I want to talk to you about today and what I want you to consider is that exact moment, that juncture. Because that's the moment, it's not where your dream ends. It's where it actually begins, if you will let yourself. We have been conditioned, we have been taught to associate fear with danger. Our nervous system interprets fear as danger because when we first experienced something that scared us, we were young. Our nervous systems were so new. We hadn't developed through life skills, and our subconscious mind, how it learns is by taking in all of the data all day long about life, about how to be here, about how to walk and talk and eat and chew and speak and write a language. All of these things it learns through taking in information. And it's extraordinary at taking that information in. But when we have an experience that causes us fright, we get lost, something happens to us. Our nervous system encodes that. And fear is then tangled with the threat response, danger. So now, decades later, you can't take risks. Your nervous system interprets that risk with the same fear from the past. So there's this specific kind of fear, right, that shows up when you are expanding. And that fear is not danger, but it's unfamiliar. It's uncomfortable. It's not something that we have crossed through before. It's an expansion point. There is growth here beyond our comfort zone. We are out of our comfort zone. We don't know how it's going to turn out if we make those moves. And the nervous system will register that like the same fear from childhood. And that will register as danger. But it isn't. Because your subconscious mind is wired, hear it, for safety, not expansion. If that landed, that alone can be life-changing, if you understand that. Your subconscious mind, its primary directive is to keep you safe. Second primary directive, to move you towards pleasure and away from pain. So if your nervous system is associating any new level of expansion as dangerous, your subconscious mind is going to do everything to not let you cross that line. Everything to either sabotage you, your nervous system is screaming, danger, turn back. But here's the thing. As it tries to pull you back, it's trying to pull you back in service to you. It is not trying to hurt you. It's trying to keep you safe. It's trying to pull you back into what it knows, back to what's predictable, back to what feels certain to your nervous system. That's what keeps you small. Even when it knows, if what it knows is smaller than what you're meant for. And that's where the change has to occur. So when you start moving towards something bigger, more visible, more of your truth, more expression of you, more wealth, more alignment, your system doesn't immediately celebrate you. It doesn't immediately calibrate to that. It pauses you. And if you don't understand what's happening, you will stop yourself right there. I know this. Excuse me. And this is where I want to be vulnerable with you, because I want you to understand this is not something I just talk about. Anything I come on and talk about in my podcast is because I have validated it in my own life. I don't speak from theory. I don't agree with just speaking from theory. I believe that where our nervous systems will literally have the opportunity to expand is if I'm speaking. And I'm speaking from a place of knowing, and I have lived it in my life, then your nervous system is taking that in. That's not registering as something logically confident, that's registering as something physically safe. So I know this, not just because I've studied it in my life, but because I've experienced it. Back in 2002, my life changed in a way I could never have predicted. I had gone on a trip to Europe with a friend and came home, and I just felt like I had a flu that I couldn't kick. And I just kept dealing with this flu where I had deep fatigue. I had brain fog. I didn't have a lot of extra energy to do anything after work. I was not doing so great through the day, but I was just sort of pulling myself through it. And this went on for months. And so it was wearing my immune system down. And then I went out and had dinner with a friend, and I got extreme food poisoning from shellfish. And those two things collided and nearly took me out. And I got very, very, very sick. This was a collision of illness and severe infection and extreme food poisoning. And what followed was something I never could have prepared for. I lost an entire month of memory. Gone. I have no recollection of 1 month of time. There are pieces of my life that I will never get back. And I actually believe that's because my subconscious mind was protecting me from the level of fear that I was experiencing. Because I literally believed when I was so sick, I believed that at some point someone in my family would come looking for me and find out that I had died in my apartment. That was the truth. Because I was so sick, I would wake up in one room and then I don't know what happened. It was dark and then it was light. It was on a different day. I was in a different room. I was on the floor and I was terrified. I did not have experiences of like light and love, and I didn't have any of that. I was terrified. So I actually believe the loss of memory is protection. because I know so much about the subconscious mind now that it is brilliant and it is always trying to protect you, always trying to keep you safe. And then for 8 months after I crawled out of that, I lived with extreme, severe vertigo. And what I mean by that is if you can imagine taking a step forward and walking, imagine walking through a brightly lit grocery store. And you know how those lights are bright at the best of times. Imagine walking and feeling like half of you is left behind. And everything starts to get blurry and spinny. And you can't walk a straight line. You have to lean against something because you can't trust your vision and you don't have your horizon line. That is what I lived with every day, all day for 8 months. The world didn't feel stable to me. I couldn't walk a straight line. My body didn't feel safe anymore to me. And fear became my constant companion. I developed panic attacks. I thought, am I ever going to get out of this? Is this ever going to go away? I questioned everything because the life that I had before that moment was really good. I loved working in the film industry, and at that time, it was so much fun. Studios were picking us up in limousines and taking us out for dinner and celebrating, and I was young, and we had so much fun. And I was making great money, and I had momentum. And then suddenly, there was my life before and my life after. And I had no idea how to bridge those two. There was a moment in the middle of all of that where I could have decided, this is it. Like, this is happening to me. My life is over. I've lost everything. And for a period of time, it felt like that because 8 months is a long time to experience that every day. You can't drive a car. You can't go to a job. You can't be around people that are talking too quickly or moving their hands. You can't watch television. You get dizzy at everything. But something inside of me started to shift. And I began to ask a different question. I said to myself, what if this is happening not to me, but for me? What if there's a plan? What if this isn't suffering? What if I'm meant to learn something from this? What if this is supposed to stretch me for something else I'm supposed to do later? Maybe I'm supposed to learn to trust. Maybe this is really a test of faith. To walk through something that feels too big for me, that feels impossible, and to learn to walk it in trust, in faith, that it has meaning, that it has purpose. And I didn't have any proof of that. I couldn't see the outcome. I couldn't have handwritten the life that I live now as a result of that if I tried. It wouldn't have even been anywhere near my consciousness at the time. I couldn't see who I would become. And that's the point. Because if we could see it ahead of time, if you could see what happens after you make the move, after you make the next move and the next move and the next move, there'd be no such thing as faith. There'd be no such thing as trust, right? So that period of my life was this ultimate meeting point for me of fear and trust, fear and faith. And I chose just moment by moment, day by day, to keep moving, to tell a different story, to rebuild, to trust that this was going somewhere. And I started to reinvent myself. And I never went back to that old life. I then studied everything I could get my hands on about healing. Everything. I started to trust something I could not yet see. And then I started meeting different people. And from that point forward, I was never the same. That was a demarcation point in my life. There was the life before that, and there was the life after. In the very best of ways, which is why I tell my clients who come to me with serious diagnosis, I say, I promise you, when you get to the other side of this, you are going to look at this like it was the biggest conversation of your life. It was the biggest growth time. And it was a blessing in hindsight, but you can't see it when you're in it, and you can't see it when you're facing things. And we don't bypass the fear that you're in. We work through it until your nervous system can hold it. When you can hold a higher level of pressure and fear, discomfort, because that's really all it is. It's registering to your nervous system like this is new. This is too far. We haven't been here before. I don't know how to process this. We can't hold this. So when your nervous system learns to hold this because you assign a different meaning to it, and then you expand into it so it becomes more comfortable, then your identity shifts. And then the body heals. Then the opportunities come. The life changes because you're not the same person anymore. And you become more and more and more of who you were always meant to be. Illness is part of the plan. That was something that I lived. That experience taught me something that I teach to every single client now. Fear is not the thing that stops you. Your interpretation of fear is what stops you. Because fear is going to show up in life. It's going to show up globally, and it's going to show up personally for each of us. And every time you step into a version of yourself you've never been before. And if you make that mean I'm not ready, you will stay exactly where you are. But you wouldn't be facing it if you weren't meant for more. You'd be content where you are. So you're meant to walk through it, right? You're ready to. This is your nervous system learning to expand. If you tell yourself, this is my identity shifting, this is me becoming someone new, I can hold this, I can handle this, I'm okay, I'm still okay, everything changes. Everything in your life changes. I want to tell you about a client who came to me experiencing severe panic attacks. And from the outside, it looked like something was really wrong, like something needed to be fixed. But when we slowed it down, when we went back in the timeline, when we understood origin points, when we understood the blueprint of her, the identity she had built for herself, and we listened and we let her subconscious mind guide us to where it wanted us to go, what we discovered was that she wasn't in danger. She was actually expanding. She was stepping into a completely new life, living on her own, and she had never done that before. She had always been with someone. She had been from her parents' home to a home with her husband, then to children, and then all of a sudden she was alone. And her nervous system did not understand that reality. That felt terrifying. So it created panic to protect her. Not because it was unsafe, but because it was completely unfamiliar. How do I do this? I don't know how to do this. My nervous system cannot hold this. I am terrified about everything. What if something breaks? What if there's a break-in? What if? And all of us can do that, right? We can understand that. We can have compassion towards that, because if we let our minds race towards the things we don't know, we're going to make it a negative story. Why is that? Why are we so conditioned to do that? Why don't we ever say, what if things get better from here? What if this was part of the plan? What if there's so much more coming that once I move through this, I'm actually bridging that gap between these 2 points for me, and everything starts to open up and becomes really good? We don't do that. We're not conditioned to say, what if it's positive? We're conditioned to say, what if it's negative? So we taught her body the opposite. We taught her nervous system how to feel safe in expansion and how to feel safe within herself, her intelligence, her own body, instead of contracting, instead of getting scared, instead of becoming small and shrinking down and isolating. And once her nervous system learned, I am safe. I'm safe in my life. I'm safe in my home. I'm safe in my timeline. I'm safe in my desires. I am meant to do the things that I'm moving into now. I successfully did the first chapter and I had so much learning from it, but there was always a part of me, and that was the discovery. Is there a part of you that says, but I want more before I go? Okay, how do we get there? That's the bridge. That's the bridge. So the nervous system has to learn we are bridging something here. We're meant to go there, and it's going to be a little uncomfortable as we go. It's going to be a little uncomfortable as we learn to hold more. The panic attacks stopped and have never returned. There's no purpose for them now. She hasn't had one since. So if you're experiencing fear right now of the unknown, I want you to consider something. What if nothing is wrong? What if this is not something to fix? What if this is something to understand? What if your life is asking you to become someone new? What if your spirit, your soul knows the plan for this lifetime? And you are at the juncture of space and time where it's time to activate the plan. You're ready. You've gathered enough evidence. You've gathered enough learning. You've gathered enough growth. You can hold it. But it's that moment of discomfort to take the action steps. And it feels like fear. But really, it's the discomfort and the uncertainty. What if it fails? What if I fall on my face? What if it doesn't work out? What if it does? What if no matter what, you're going to be okay? What if no matter what happens, the learning from it is going to be so valuable and you will always find the path? This was something I looked at in my life too, because it was really interesting. I had no idea what I wanted to be. And as towards the end of high school, I decided that I really wanted to be a police officer. That's what I was going to become. I wanted to then become a profiler for the police. And my dad sat on the planning board of the city of Toronto, and he knew a lot of people, and he was not going to have any of that. That was not going to be okay. That was an unsafe job. We had a conversation, and conversations with my dad went like, this is how it's going to go. So he said, no. And I said, that's what I want. And he said, no. And I said, but that's what I want. And he said, okay, then sitting inside at a desk. And I said, that's not what I'm saying. I want to be able to profile the bad guys. I want to be able to help. And he said, no, just no, hard no. And he knew everybody. So, and he didn't go against my dad. Now, when I look in hindsight at my life did a whole lot of this, right? How do I end up in the film industry and then end up over here in a clinical practice? And what am I doing right now? It's profiling work, except it's for the best people on the planet. My clients are the most extraordinary people I get the honor of working with, and I get to profile and blueprint where they want to be and what's in the way. And I move them through that bridge because I don't have a doubt in my mind that what you want can't be yours, not even a hint of it. With what I've lived and what I've walked through, I have no problem holding that for you. I don't have the nervous system that blocks that resists that's in the way. So I hold that with you till we're there, till the identity shift and the breakthroughs come. So I'm doing profiling in the very best way. To me, I just think it's so much fun, and I think it's so extraordinary. And if we stop trying to control everything and limit ourselves in every way, the divine intelligence within us has incredible experiences for us to have, more than we ever dreamed they could be. But you've got to trust that partnership. You've got to trust that you have what it takes to go through the discomfort. And I know it's a big ask. Trust me, I know it's a big ask. But once you do, the fear of things gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. It takes a lot to scare me now. I've been through a lot. My life is blown up multiple times in many ways, and it takes a lot to make me scared now, which is why my nervous system can hold it. So when you look at your life and you feel that fear, that contraction, that internal, that moment where everything in you wants to pull back, I want you to understand something very, very clearly. You are not broken. You are not blocked. Nothing has gone wrong. I want you to know that. I want you to write that down. I want you to say that to yourself. Because here's what's actually happening. Your system has not yet learned how to feel safe with the life that you say that you want. Because most women are trying to create their dreams. But we've been taught to create them from fear and negativity. I got to get out of here and I got to get over there. Why? For safety. I need to make sure I have my own money for safety. I need to make sure I'm my own boss for safety. I need to make sure I have X, Y, and Z for safety. Fear of failure really challenges that safety. Fear of being seen for women is a very big deal. Most of us have experienced some form of assault in our past or inappropriate conduct. Raise your hand if that's happened. I know I am not the only woman in the room raising her hand. So fear of being seen is real. I had to do a lot of work around that in order to be able to come out and make myself visible. I was much more comfortable being quiet and invisible in the back of the room, working hard, organizing everything, but I wanted zero eyes on me. It was not safe to have that much attention. So this is real for women, and we've got to move through it because your voice, your work, your contributions, they really matter. There is no one else like you. No one. There is only one you. Your thoughts, your unique skills and attributes, your story, what you've learned, your desire, all of those things formulate a blueprint. And there's a plan for you. So when you are uncomfortable, the plan is activating, but your nervous system isn't ready. That fear of losing everything, the fear of success, yes, really, that's a real thing. What happens if I become very successful and wealthy? Do I lose all my friends? Does my family disengage? Do people start acting strange around me? Do they expect different things from me? Do I lose the connection and depth with people because being around me becomes triggering? All very real. And layered underneath that is all this generational conditioning around safety, around money, around power. Because scientifically it's been proven it is in our cellular DNA. Our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, our great-great-grandmothers, think about what these women have been through. Think about what they had survived. They were not allowed to have property. They were not allowed to have a credit card. They were not allowed to have any money. Children were not in their custody if there was a divorce. Divorce wasn't allowed, even if there was domestic violence. We come from generations of women who have been through things, and our cells remember that. So fear around these things needs to be looked at, needs to be worked through. This is why I'm not a fan of like the hypnotists out there that say like, I just poof and in 5 minutes and it's permanent. That's not me. If that's what you're looking for, I'm not your girl. Don't call me. That is not what I am here for. I am here for the identity work. I am here for you to partner with the intelligence that runs you. And this intelligence is extraordinary and it's brilliant. It knows the way, it knows what's in the way, it knows what you can hold, it knows what you're ready for, it knows the plan. And all it wants is to make sure you're safe with every move. So we've got work to do to make sure that safety lands in your nervous system because that's not done here. Right? We can understand everything I'm talking about right now logically, but for that to anchor into your nervous system, that requires the subconscious to reorganize itself around it. Now we've got generational things to clean up, and we've got things from this lifetime that have impacted it that your nervous system is trying to protect you from. Understanding that can create amazing changes for you. But I have found, God's honest truth, I have found, working with, at this point, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, predominantly women. I speak in my marketing mostly to women because, my business is maybe 10% men, 90 to 95% women, 5 to 10% men. Perfect. That's who responds to me because that's what I'm passionate about. Makes perfect sense. But I speak to everybody when I say, when your nervous system can't hold it, there's a lot of real reasons for it, but not the reasons you are making it mean. Not that you're not ready, not that it is truly dangerous, not that you can't handle it. It's not, those aren't the real reasons, but that's what our default programming says. And our identity, that person that says that voice inside your head that says, no, 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 maybe we're not ready, maybe it's not the right time. That's when we deflect to like, the universe is trying to tell us, stop. That's a story. That story was created through an identity. What is an identity? It is a solid group of patterns and habits over time, created beliefs. The beliefs created the habits. This is who I am. But all of those patterns, all of those habits, all of those beliefs, they are not permanent unless you say so. They were just acquired over time and they can be changed. And that is where real change occurs. It occurs at the subconscious level, where those stories change. We change them. And when the subconscious reorganizes around it and the nervous system knows we're not in danger, we're just in expansion and we're moving towards expansion because that's actually comfortable for us, everything changes. That's where the magic kicks in. But there's a whole lot of work that happens before we see that. And the most amazing thing happens, and I hear it from my clients all the time, and I find it's so much fun. They will say, I didn't really notice. It doesn't feel like anything's different until something happens in life that was a big enough circumstance that they recognize that would have absolutely sent me reeling in the past. And I didn't even flinch. It didn't bother me. Wow, I am a different person. That's what I hear over and over and over again. Because identity work means it just feels like me. It's subtle. The work is in doing all of the practice work and doing the regression work. It's and facing your fears, right? It's layered work. But the identity, changing who I am, that comes naturally. That is effortless. That just feels like, wow, that was me in the past, not anymore. And you know how you have the evidence of that? Are you the same person you were in high school? No, thank God, right? Thank God. We're not. You say, that feels like that was a lifetime ago. When I look back and think of the version of me that was working in the film industry, I think that's a past life. That feels so far away. How is that in the same lifetime? That feels like such a different person. So our identity shifts all the time. But you can do that intentionally when you're ready for more. We're not taught this. We don't learn this anywhere. School doesn't teach us or prepare us for any of this. So you start to move into this new identity work. You start to shift your alignment and things start working differently. And you start to feel it. Momentum starts to build internally. Opportunities start to open up. And your nervous system is okay all along. It activates, right? And then that's when the fear kicks in. If we're not ready for it, if we're not in that alignment, if we're not anchored in that identity that can hold that desire yet, fear will kick in. Nervous system will then activate and stop us. And that is the moment you will pull yourself out. And then you will ascribe a meaning to it about why that's justified. What I'm asking you to do is not do it. Understand first what's happening. Because it's not because you don't want it when you pull back. It's because your system doesn't feel safe holding it. So you don't get what you want. You know what you get? You get what your system feels safe having. And that is a movable goal. That is a malleable line. We have identity built around that. I never used to be a person that was comfortable doing podcasts and doing interviews and doing one-to-one and leading other women to start their businesses, to live their lives, to heal their bodies, to regain their power and their confidence. That wasn't me, but it is now. Identity work shifts everything based on what your desires are, based on where you want to go, based on your purpose, and when I say purpose, I mean that in the most meaningful, defined way. Who are you? What matters to you? What are your values? Go deep, go specific. And what does that look like? Where is the contribution around that? Now you've got actionable steps, but you're going to face your fear the moment you think about taking those steps. And then you've got a decision to make. Are you going to pull back and let it stop you? Are you going to tell yourself a story about why it isn't the right time? When would the right time be? Because here's what I don't want it to be. You know what happens if you don't move through it, if you don't figure out what is really happening for you and do that work? We get to the end of our life. Time is not as linear as we think it is. It moves quickly. We can learn to slow things down when we're having a good time. Sometimes it feels like it all speeds up. Sometimes it feels like it's slow when things are negative. Long, slow, painful process, right? Everybody's been there. But when you're having a good time, time flies when you're having fun. That's where those sayings come from. But decades disappear, and then we have regret. Why didn't I do it? Why didn't I just try? Why was I so scared? Why did I judge myself so harshly? And that's the beauty about women that start to reach the second chapter of their life. I think Jane Fonda calls it life in 3 acts, right? First act, second act, third act. And in that second and third act, you stop really caring about what other people think about you. And you care more about yourself, about your authenticity, being true to yourself, being honest with yourself, having really healthy boundaries, not letting people treat you in ways that are very disrespectful, and moving forward, fulfilling your desires. You start to really decide. One thing I do every day when I'm about to invest my energy is I decide, how much energy am I going to put into this? And what is my return on investment? I'm not going to get tangled up in a lot of things that will drain my energy, that just have no return on investment, when I can be over here writing a program, creating a module, doing a podcast, preparing, blueprinting for a client. Those yield more extraordinary results. And when we reach that second and third act, we start to really focus on the things that have the best return on investment, living the life we want to be living, going after the dreams. And so fear is the very first thing that's going to pop up. Very first thing. So this is exactly why I've created my next program. It's going to be announcing it on my birthday, April 21st. So watch your inbox for that. We will begin, I think, 17th or 16th of May, the Saturday, whichever that is, 16th or 17th. The program is called The Creation Field. It is 10 weeks long. People who have been in my programs know sometimes we get into the program, sometimes there's more to say, sometimes it runs a little bit longer. We just free flow with it. There might be another module or not. There might be another 2 modules or not. It really is based so custom on where my people are, how it's landing, how it is integrating in their nervous systems. And based on that, I customize hypnosis for the group, and I customize where we go in the next module. So I'm excited because this is the first time I'm ever going to teach as close as I can possibly get to how do we move through these things and get into the state that actually yields the results, right? How do we stop kicking ourselves out every single time we get scared? How do I stop doing that? How do I stop kicking myself out of the person I want to be that feels really good in the moment and reverting back to the old version of me and then being upset with myself about it? It's called The Creation Field. Because there is this state that most people don't even realize exists. And it's a state where your subconscious, your nervous system, and your identity are all fully aligned with what you desire. So it's 10 weeks. It's going to be 2-hour modules each week. And there will be some assignment work to do in between. Nothing heavy, manageable, but important to keep you in it. So from that state, the goal here is you leave with you not chasing your life anymore. You've entered it. You're living it. It's not something you force. It's not something you hustle your way into. It's something you become. It's something you enter and anchor and become. And we work through the layers of the origin points that have been blocking along the way, ancestral layers. We deal with origin points of that fear of being seen, fear of being powerful, fear of being successful. We are going to deal with all of it. I am very, very excited. So, thank you for this conversation. This has been a longer one this month because there was a lot that I wanted to talk about. I want you to look at the world differently. I want to look at your rooting yourself in the world differently. Because this is what I had to learn, right? Without having language for it at the time, way back in 2002, in that fluffy nugget version of me, when my life split into before and after. And I was being asked to walk through tremendous fear without any certainty, to trust something I could not see yet, a life I couldn't even fathom, but it was so on point and even better than the 18-year-old version of me had hoped for, to become someone new in an even better, more brilliant way, before I had any proof that it would work. And what I understand now is that that was always part of the plan. That was just like the initiation, right? The activation. This is how you move through it into this exact state where fear doesn't disappear. That doesn't exist, but it stopped controlling me. When my nervous system learned, I can be here. I can hold this. I'm safe in expansion. And this is the work. This is the transformation. You become the woman who trusts her inner guidance without hesitation. The woman whose nervous system is safe with expansion. This is so big, that piece. The woman who receives without overworking for it or people-pleasing for it. The woman who no longer collapses back into fear cycles. The woman who holds her desires as inevitable. I'm doing what I need to do. It's already on the way. Because you're not trying to create your life anymore from a dysregulated nervous system. You're creating from a whole new alignment which builds an identity around itself. And with that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for this wonderful time. If this landed for you, if something stood out for you, if this made you think about your life, reach out, leave a comment, connect. I would love to hear your thoughts. And until next month, be well.